I've always been curious about my father's past, though I never really thought to ask him about it. Growing up, he was always a man of few words, especially when it came to his life before he moved to the States. He'd occasionally mention being from a small town, but he never went into detail, and if I pushed too hard, he'd always shut down. When I was younger, I thought maybe it was just because he was a quiet guy. But as I grew older, I started to realize that there was something more there, something he wasn't telling me. The one thing he'd always say when I asked him about his past was that he came here for a better life. But the way he'd say it felt hollow, as though it was an answer meant to fill a gap rather than reveal the truth. What unsettled me most, though, was how he always dismissed any questions about his family. There were no family photos around the house, no letters or mementos, nothing. My mom and I visited my grandparents frequently, but he never seemed interested in spending time with his own side of the family. There was one strange moment I'll never forget. I was about 15, and I woke up late one night to get some water. As I passed by my father's office, I heard him talking, but it wasn't to anyone in the room. It was through the phone. I didn't recognize the language, but it sounded foreign, harsh even. I stood there for a moment, unsure if I should go in, but curiosity got the best of me. Just as I moved to get closer to the door, I froze when I heard his voice clearly say, "It's done, but don't contact me again. You understand what this means, right?" I stepped back, my heart pounding. Was he talking to someone from his past? It didn't feel like a normal conversation. I stood there for what felt like forever, but my father quickly ended the call and was silent. Then, to my surprise, he suddenly opened the door, catching me off guard. He looked at me with a cold expression, his face unreadable. "Go back to bed," he said, his voice firm. I didn't question him further, but something about that moment haunted me. Fast forward a few years to when I was in college. I was home for the summer, and one afternoon my dad asked me to drive him to a remote location in the desert. He didn't say much during the drive, but I couldn't help but notice that he seemed nervous, restless even. It wasn't until we reached a spot far from town, surrounded by nothing but desert, that things started to get strange. There were 2 trucks parked there, just like in a scene from a movie. My dad got out, and I followed, feeling uneasy. As we approached the trucks, a group of men appeared from behind them, all holding guns. I froze, my heart racing. One of them approached us, speaking quickly in Spanish, but my dad didn't hesitate for a moment. He spoke back, and from the way they interacted, it was clear that these men knew each other. I watched in disbelief as they exchanged something. Papers, money, I couldn't see clearly, but whatever it was, it didn't seem right. I wasn't sure whether to stay or run, but before I could make any decision, my dad turned to me with a calm, almost practiced expression. "Wait in the car," he told me. I did as I was told, heart still racing. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could see the tense exchange and the way the men seemed to respect my father's every word. The whole situation felt wrong. When they were done, my dad came back to the car and we drove off in silence. I tried to ask him what had happened, but he just told me not to worry about it. I knew better than to push him, but the questions lingered in my mind. Who were those men? Why did they seem to be so familiar with my dad? A few weeks later, I did some research into his background, digging deeper into his hometown and his family. The more I uncovered, the more unsettling it became. My dad had connections I didn't even know existed, people who were linked to things far beyond what I could ever imagine. The vague references to business and deals that he had always brushed off as nothing more than his old life suddenly seemed far more sinister. I've been trying to make sense of it all, but now I'm not sure I even want to know the truth. My dad has always been protective of me, but now I wonder if it is not just out of love. It might be because he is trying to keep me safe from something I'm not meant to understand. The fear that I might be tied to something much darker than I ever imagined, keeps creeping into my thoughts. What if that call all those years ago wasn't the first of its kind? What if there's still something my father hasn't told me, something I'm better off not knowing?